for the continuation of categories. So we've talked about how important they are. I've demonstrated how important they are. Let's dive into how to select categories and give you a little more information on why they're so important. And I can give you some direct illustrations from different phone calls that I've been on one-on-one with people where this will become very apparent why it's so important. So let me just get out of this for 1 second. This is the back end panel for Red Hill Family Law, which is kind of the demo site that I use for this, which is ranking extremely, extremely well, right? For everything. So let me just show you really quickly, the types of stuff it ranks for. So Irvine is a very large city suburb of Orange County, California. Orange County has about 3 million people. Irvine itself is one of the largest suburbs with around 300,000, 350,000 people, something like that. Very wealthy area, by the way. It's a very expensive area. So ranking in this area is just getting massive amounts of phone calls. Like it's unreal the amount of phone calls that come in through Maps, because I have a tracking number on everything, to this site. And so I'll just show you really quickly, the types of terms we're ranking for. And again, I'm logged in here. You may get different results, but even if I was on incognito, I'm going to get very similar results. Irvine divorce attorney, #1 in Maps. Sometimes Irvine divorce lawyers ranking, it just literally depends on the location that I've searched from and the day. But let's try a divorce lawyer, Irvine, California. #3 on Maps. And I showed you this before, how I reshaped this category, and we'll talk more about how that's done. But Irvine child custody attorney, the biggest money keyword term for any divorce lawyer is child custody. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything like that to people who've gone through divorce, but people will pay any amount of money when it comes to their kids, right? Especially with respect to custody issues, visitation issues. I'm #1. Tons and tons and tons of phone calls for that kind of stuff. If we go over here and we look at, let's say, Irvine family law attorney, #2, and then we can get a little more out there in terms of other types of stuff, like Irvine alimony attorney, #1 again. So it's kind of like all these, really any type of major keyword related to family law, divorce, alimony, child support. We didn't do child support, but we could. Irvine child support, that's another big money, potential big money keyword. Irvine child support, #1, right? So you get the point. A lot of this has to do with what we're going to dive into. Okay, so proper category selection, maximum use of categories, even if you don't think that they would fit, if you can make them fit in a way that's logical. And I'll show you what I mean. It has to be logical, right? You can't just go out on a limb and say, I don't know, I'm going to use this category for a divorce lawyer, and it's just not related at all. Like maybe it's criminal law attorney, and I'm going to use it and reshape it to mean something else. If they don't do criminal law, that doesn't make sense. But here's what does make sense. Let me show you how I structured this particular site and show you why I haven't even gone as far as I can. So clearly a divorce firm or a family law firm is going to choose divorce lawyer as their primary category. And so, we talked about primary category and why that matters. And I showed you the illustration of the Orange County personal injury attorney who chose trial attorney as their primary category, and literally by all rights should be ranked in Maps if we went off of the blended algorithm concept. There could be other reasons he's not ranked in Maps, but he's like #1 or very near the top, I think, organically, yet he's 10 positions deep or something in Maps because he selected trial attorney, right? And people just don't understand the significance of the category. So divorce lawyer obviously is a category that fits exactly with what I do in this case on this listing. And we're going to get into that more, where you need to select categories that fit in with exactly what you do and then assign those to topically relevant areas on your site and structure your site around that. But then there's going to be potentially, depending on the type of business you're in, maybe other categories that you could use where they kind of make sense but don't quite make sense. So I told you, like, divorce service doesn't exactly make sense. I showed you an illustration of that, how I didn't even structure the site in that case. I just selected divorce service as a category, and you saw how I'm ranking for Irvine divorce service. I didn't do anything on my site related to divorce service. So let's back up here for a second. Family law attorney. Clearly they are a family law attorney. And that's where it kind of stops and starts. For most SEOs, they might select divorce lawyer, maybe family law attorney, and they're done. And what about other potential categories? Why should we select those? So I want you to keep that in mind. Why would you select that? That's a question I get all the time. The answer is because categories are so important and create such a ranking signal to Google on maps. And because we're going to then use these categories to not just sort of sit here alone inside of the maps listing and do nothing else with them, although that can work sometimes, in my case for Irvine divorce service, that worked very well. But most of the time, if we just choose categories and do nothing else with them, it's not going to have any effect. But the point is that categories is such a strong, major ranking signal for maps rankings that not choosing them is very harmful, right? It's just not going to, I shouldn't say harmful, it's not helping you at all, right? You're not getting the full benefit that you could get if you select every single possible category available to you. So we're going to talk about selecting categories where it clearly is related to the thing you do, like divorce lawyer, family law attorney, and then other categories which may not be related to the thing you do, but are still related, to what it is you are. And I'll show you what I mean. If we hop into lawyer, for instance, this firm is made up of lawyers, right? But lawyer is super, super generic. So what do I do with that, right? So I want to kind of like set that aside for a second. But clearly, law firms are made up of, guess what? Lawyers, right? So it's very generic. We saw the example of personal injury attorney who selected trial attorney as their primary category instead of personal injury. And it didn't do them any favors. So you're probably asking, well, why would I select it? Well, I'm not selecting it as my primary category, but I'm going to kind of set this aside. And what I want to do as I go through this exercise is, and what I want you to do as well, is come up with every possible category that could apply, okay? And write it down somewhere. Get a little, use a text notepad or something on your computer. Write down every possible category that could apply. And then you may eliminate some, you may not. And when you write them down, here's the key. They need to be exactly as Google gives them to you. So if it says lawyer, you're not going to write lawyers with plural. If it says family law attorney, you're not going to write family law firm. It's going to be family law attorney, because we're going to use this exact language to mirror our site down the line. And we're going to, in fact, start to use this to structure our site in almost an outline-like format, to where from a topical standpoint, from a thematic standpoint, right? Just literally think niche. We're going to structure everything around the concept of lawyer. And, we can then do whatever we want. We can make it, in the case of this, I showed you how I turned this into mean child custody. If I wanted it to mean lawyer, I could. But just keep in mind, we're going to start by writing down every possible thing that we can think of. So we have lawyer, we have divorce service. These make sense, right? Law firm makes sense. Well, guess what else makes sense? Which I've never selected, but I could. Trial attorney, which we just found for the personal injury lawyer who should have selected as their primary category personal injury attorney, selected trial attorney. That doesn't mean they shouldn't also select trial attorney. They are, in fact, a trial attorney. Personal injury lawyers go to court. Divorce lawyers go to court, and they actually try cases, sometimes in front of judges, sometimes in front of juries. They are a trial attorney. Very generic. What do we do with that? At this point, we don't care, right? We're just going to go and make notes of it. Another one is civil law firm, I want to say, or civil law attorney. See, I don't know the exact category, but that's why it's important that I don't guess and say, oh yeah, I think it was civil law firm inside of my GMB listing that I selected, and then I go structure my whole site around civil law firm. That's a big no-no. We want to actually use exact keywords here because we're going to use them later on our site. So this is the process that I go through, where you will sit there and select every single possible thing that you can think of that relates to what it is that business does. If it's way out on a limb, and I'm going to show you some examples of that, maybe we don't use it. But if it's at least closely related, and these are probably the only ones that apply. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I stopped and started with divorce lawyer, do you think I'm going to get much benefit from that? Answer: no. I mean, yeah, I'm probably going to get ranked for divorce attorney, divorce lawyer, things like that potentially. But what about family law attorney? What about lawyer? So I like to, on my calls, I like to equate this with, if anybody's ever done any kind of YouTube ranking, where you're trying to rank a YouTube video. And if you haven't, don't worry about it. You'll still understand this kind of, this illustration that I want to give you. When you rank a YouTube video, yes, it's important to upload your video with a file name that's been saved as your keyword. Yes, it's very important to title tag or put a title that has your primary keyword in your YouTube video. Yes, it's extremely important to have a nice description and a lengthy description. And there's a bunch of other little tricks that go into YouTube ranking. But guess what the most important thing is to YouTube ranking? That if I forgot about that part, none of what I did above with title tag, saving my video file as my keyword, my description would matter at all. Guess what's most important? Tags that you use. So using our exact keywords as a tag, that becomes the major ranking signal to getting ranked on YouTube and on Google. And so if you forgot about putting your keywords in the tags, you're not going to rank very well. Unless it's just super, super low competition. It's kind of the same thing here, only way more important. So Google could have said, hey, divorce attorney is the keyword, but they didn't, right? They said divorce lawyer. They could have said family law firm, but they didn't. They said family law attorney. So what they're doing here is they are assigning meaning to, think of kind of like a theme, thematic content, the overarching term, the sort of, if we're looking at an outline, divorce lawyer is kind of like what they're saying is the most important thing related to divorce related keywords. All right. So keep that in mind. Family law attorney is going to be the most important keyword related to family law. Now, I'm going to show you how this changes slightly when we get to our site, right? Because in other words, the category keyword, so divorce lawyer or family law attorney or something like that, or civil law attorney, may not be the most searched for keyword. So we're not necessarily going to use that on our site in terms of in our title tag. So we'll get to that in a minute, but knowing that our title tags are typically the most important place to have our primary keyword that we want to rank for, that has the most search volume, that may be very different than our category keywords. So these are category keywords. Keep that separate from primary keyword or from ranking keywords from a search volume perspective. Now, when we get to structuring our page, I'm going to show you how I tie all that in together. They all need to be thematically related. So divorce lawyer might be the overarching kind of term, right, as the category, but maybe divorce attorney, maybe Irvine divorce attorney gets searched more, so that might be in my title tag. Does that mean I don't want to use the exact words divorce lawyer on my site, actually on that page somewhere about divorce? No, I do, because it's a category keyword. It's a major ranking signal. All right. So I just want you to clearly understand that. Let's get rid of this stuff and let me show you a couple more examples of this that are not related to lawyers. We're gonna use this category. I'm gonna keep this here, so ignore this because this is actually a live listing. Let me just give you further illustration. I've been on the phone many times with dental consultants, SEOs who work only for dentists or primarily for dentists. There's a lot of SEOs out there that work for dentists for whatever reason. And I'm on the phone with them and we go through this discussion of categories and why they're so important. And I'm giving them the same, kind of information that I'm giving you right now. And I'll ask them, what categories did you select? And they'll inevitably say dentist. I was like, cool, that's great. That's your primary category, right? You're whoever you're working with is a dentist. You're going to want to go with that for primary category. And then I'll ask them, well, what else did you select? Silence, crickets, nothing, right? Or, some more savvy people will have selected, maybe like dentist and dental clinic, I think is the keyword. Well, I'll show you in a second here. Let me pull up the dentist categories. Dentist, dental clinic. So they might select the two generic keywords, dentist and dental clinic. And then I start to ask them, I'll grill them a little bit. And we'll say, hey, does your dentist do any kind of cosmetic dentistry at all? Yes. So let's do this, cosmetic dentist. Oh, that's a category. So I would write that down. And so as we go through this exercise, I'll show you what they start to ask, and it's interesting, and I'm going to show you why it matters. I'll ask them things like, well, do they do any kind of teeth whitening? Do they do laser teeth whitening, whatever? And they're like, yeah. Teeth whitening service is another category. Do they do any kind of root canals? Well, yeah, of course. Oh, endodontist is a category. Do they do Invisalign or braces or any kind of orthodontics at all? Yes, orthodontist is a category. Do they do dental implants at all? Yes. Look, dental implants, periodontist. So you're starting to get the picture here that essentially there are way more keywords than you'd ever imagine. A denture care clinic, orthodontist we talked about, teeth whitening service, emergency dental service, oral surgeon. I'll ask them, do they extract teeth, right? Yes, they extract teeth. I'm like, well, then we might want to use oral surgeon. And I'll probably put this in a different video, but there's times when you want to use this, but you do have to be careful about and be mindful of regulated types of businesses that can't use certain keywords to describe themselves. So there's ways to do this ethically and honestly without getting the dentist in trouble for calling themselves, for instance, an endodontist when maybe you have to have 2 more years of schooling for that. And I'll show you how I structure that. But the point is, I want to write all of these down because they're going to potentially help us later on. We're going to structure our site around this. So not once, but many times I've been on the call with somebody that deals with dentists, for instance, or dentists, and we'll go through this discussion, and maybe they're ranking pretty well overall for dentist or whatever, like maybe a couple dental terms, and I'll have them go in during the call and select a bunch of these categories. And several times I've been on calls with people where 3 hours in, 4 hours in, we go back and we check, and now they're ranked for cosmetic dentist. Now they're ranked for, variations of endodontist or root canal doctor, and so on and so on and so on. Why? Because the categories matter. Let me show you one other example. Let me show you a service-based business example. I was on a phone call with somebody who does roofing very recently, and their category was roofing contractor. And we started to dig through their site, and it turned out that these guys also did siding, they did insulation, and they installed solar panels. And we talked about it. I said, well, have you selected anything related to that? And they're like, no, we just put roofing, right? And so we went through the exercise of looking through all the possible things that could apply. And we came up with this list: siding contractor, solar energy contractor, insulation contractor, where we can then take these things and not only, step one, put them inside of our GMB listing, step two, structure our entire site around that. Okay, so if they perform that service, we're going to use each of these category keywords to our maximum advantage by starting the process of, we start the process by choosing the categories inside of our GMB listing. That's step one. Step two is, make sure we write them down exactly as is. Every single possible variation. Literally anything that could apply, I would write down and then start to eliminate. So if we looked at things like, I would exhaust every variation of, for instance, solar energy. Are they a solar energy company? Maybe not. Right? Maybe that's more like the actual people that are I don't know, are not doing installations or whatever. I don't know. They could be doing something totally different than installations, but I would want to write it down and then figure it out later. Solar energy contractor for sure. Solar photovoltaic, if I can pronounce that right. Power plant, definitely not. I'd probably write it down and then we'll eliminate it later. My point is I would go through through the exercise of writing down everything related to solar, and then I can eliminate stuff later if I want to. And ultimately, if I only come up with solar energy contractor, that's fine. But what about, like solar hot water system supplier? What if they, for instance, do solar work and they install mini solar panels to heat pools? So in Vegas, that's very common. I don't know about around the rest of the country. It's very common to have these little mini solar panels that heat up your pool or your spa, right? Now, could you say solar hot water system supplier is somebody who does that, installs the little panels for heating up your pool or spa? Could you at least make the argument that that kind of makes sense? Yeah, definitely. So we would want to write that down, because not writing it down is going to harm us later. We want to make sure that we can structure our site around every possible variation. So I would go through the same process, like insulation contractor. So there's insulator supplier, that's a possibility. Insulation contractor, that's a possibility. Insulation materials store, probably not, right, if they're just a contractor. But the point is I want to write down every variation that I can think of, regardless of what it is they do. I was on the phone with another business, a service-based business, who was a carpet cleaner, and they also did like tile and grout cleaning, and it turned out that they had selected, I think, carpets. What was it? It's like carpet cleaning service, and that's it. And then there was like tile and grout, or tile contractor was what it turned out to be. And are they really a tile contractor? Maybe not, but we can then assign meaning to it potentially by using the word tile contractor to mean everything related to tile and grout cleaning. And it turned out that they did something like 7 other services where we could come up with a category that either was directly related to the service they performed, or indirectly, like tile contractor would be indirect, right? They're not necessarily a typical tile contractor who's going out and laying tile, but could you say that they are being hired to go out and clean tile and grout? And can we then assign meaning to tile contractor, leveraging the fact that we know that it's a powerful ranking signal, but then making the whole page be about tile and grout cleaning? So I hope you understand what I'm talking about here. The exercise you're going to go through is choose every possible category, even if it only sort of makes sense. Write it all down on a notepad, and then we'll start to look at the actual services they perform and figure out, does this make sense? Does this not make sense in light of what they actually do? And we're going to start to structure our site around that whole idea, okay? From a services perspective, from a niche perspective, from the perspective of just like thinking thematically as an overall theme or topic area. Tile and grout cleaning, for instance, could be an overall topic area that we're then going to still leverage tile contractor for, and we may have a whole page around that concept. And I'm going to show you starting in the next video how we start to structure these pages, beginning with a single location physical website, right? So they have one physical location where we do this kind of work, and then how we structure everything, and then moving into multi-location websites, and then moving into service location websites with one location and a radius, and service location websites with multiple locations and a radius. Okay, so hopefully this all makes sense, and I will see you over in the next video where we start to structure our site.